Mark Cuban opened his own online pharmacy, claiming he's going to cut out the pharmacy middlemen, potentially save you thousands of dollars on your medication, and disrupt the pharmacy market as we know it. But does his pharmacy really hold up to those claims? My name is Dr. Sierra Richard. I am a pharmacist, and whenever I heard about Mark Cuban's pharmacy, I wanted to dig deep into the numbers and really find out, does it live up to the hype? But before we get into those numbers that I found, let's go over the basics of his pharmacy model. Mark Cuban Cost Plus Drug Company, or MCCPDC, because pharmacy really needed another acronym, is a cash-only online pharmacy. That means no insurance accepted, no coupons accepted, but you can use your health savings account, also known as an HSA, or your flexible spending account, known as an FSA, in order to pay for your prescriptions. His pharmacy currently uses a fulfillment service called True Pill Pharmacy, and it uses only a single manufacturer to keep costs down. Of note, True Pill Pharmacy does not have good reviews on Google, which I always usually take them with a grain of salt, but I found several of them stating that their medications were delivered late, just as an FYI. Anyway, these prescriptions can be shipped to 49 states in the United States, North Carolina, and is currently available to patients who are 18 years or older, so no kids allowed at this time. Anyone who chooses to use this online pharmacy will also need a brand new prescription from their doctor. Even if you have refills available with another prescription at a different pharmacy, there are no transfers allowed, so you have to get a brand new prescription. Mark Cuban stated that he wanted things to be very transparent, so if you go to the website, you can see the manufacturing cost for each of the drugs, the 15% markup that he charges because it's Mark Cuban, he's a shark, he's gotta make some money, the $3 pharmacy fee, and then not included in the price that you actually see up at the top is the $5 shipping fee. This is for standard shipping that will ship within a few days. There's no number range available. And then you can also pay $15 for expedited shipping. Again, there's nothing on the website that says how quickly that would show up. You got all that? Good. Let's move on to drug cost. So currently there's a little over 100 different medications available on the online website. That is if you consider the various formulations, release mechanisms, things like that. For the purposes of this video, I went through 125 different medications and formulations that were on Mark Cuban's website in order to give you the information I'm about to present. And in case you were wondering, yes, there was a spreadsheet, yes, there was a pivot table, and it was glorious. So here are the results. I wanted to give a fair comparison of what Mark Cuban was doing, so the first place I wanted to look was GoodRx.com. The reason for this is a common place that people go who don't have insurance or have a high cost with their insurance when they're looking for drug coupons or a drug cost comparison. And when doing this comparison with those 125 drugs I just told you about, Mark Cuban's pharmacy actually had better baseline prices 86% of the time when compared to all of the 9 pharmacies that had information available on the front page of GoodRx. I wanted to go a little bit deeper though. So I took the lowest price available with all the pharmacies at GoodRx.com and compared it to the price at Mark Cuban's online pharmacy. Mark Cuban's pharmacy beat that lowest price for GoodRx in 75 of the 125 medications, so 60% of the time. Although I will say there were a few drugs that GoodRx just beat all the way across the board, no matter which pharmacy at GoodRx you looked at. One interesting example I found was all of the different forms of albuterol inhalers. With the GoodRx price, they were $10 to $15 cheaper than what was available on Mark Cuban's online pharmacy. There was also one other thing I wanted to look at. That original price that I was comparing the GoodRx price to didn't include that minimum $5 shipping fee. So if you're planning to purchase a single medication from Mark Cuban's online pharmacy and you tack on that $5 shipping fee, his pharmacy would beat the GoodRx price in 20 of the 125 medications, so 16% of the time. Now I have a feeling that most people looking at this list would probably get multiple medications from his pharmacy, which would obviously drive that price down, but it's definitely something to consider if you're only looking at getting a single medication from his pharmacy, because the less medications you purchase from his pharmacy, the less benefit you're going to see because of those additional shipping fees. That also points out that most of his medications are within $5 of the lowest price on GoodRx. But I wanted to go yet another step further because a lot of people don't use GoodRx. There's a lot of problems with GoodRx for pharmacies. A lot of pharmacies don't accept it because of the reimbursement problems there, which could be a whole nother video. But I wanted to look and compare to the cash prices at pharmacies. This is a little bit more difficult, so I actually surveyed my audience And while I didn't get a huge crazy number of responses, I did get some really interesting information that I wanted to share with you, and honestly the prices are all over the place. So I wanted to pull out a couple medications that Mark Cuban really talks about in his marketing, compare it to GoodRx, compare it to the cash price at a pharmacy, and see how it all stacks up. The first medication I want to talk about is albendazole, 200 milligrams, 2 tablets. This medication can be given for certain types of worms, like hookworms, pinworms, things like that. With Mark Cuban's pharmacy, his pre-shipping price is $33 for those 2 tabs. And he compares that to a cash price of $437, which isn't very far off from the cash prices I saw for some of the polled pharmacies. I had a response of $430 and a response of $445. But I also had prices much, much lower than that, like $16, $10, $6.50. Also of note, the lowest price on GoodRx.com was $51. So again, all over the place. But what about that drug that's in all of the news articles? Imatinib. This medication is an oral chemotherapy agent that is used to treat several types of cancer, including leukemia. 30 tablets of 400 milligram imatinib cost $47.10 at Mark Cuban's Online Pharmacy. And he claims that the retail price of this medication would be $9,557.30. And that's not what I saw from my survey responses at all. Well, I did get one response that said their cash price would be over $7,000. The rest of the cash prices were all under $300, which is still a lot of money, but a lot less than $9,000. And there were also several that were on par with the Mark Cuban's pharmacy price at $46 or $47. So while I didn't survey enough pharmacies to say that this is the price everywhere and all of those medication prices are under $300 except for a rare occasion, I can't say that. But what I can say is there are plenty of pharmacies that probably are not charging over $9,000 for this medication. However, the price obviously varies significantly between pharmacy to pharmacy. Even the GoodRx prices had a huge variation. The lowest end was $120 and the high end was over $2,300, which is just mind-blowing. But again, none of those prices got anywhere close to the $9,000 mark. They also had some just like weird amounts available on their website and what they were using to share their pricing, and it seemed way off. Tamiflu, you usually take 10 capsules, and what was available for pricing online was 1, 2, or 3 capsules, which you would like never take. Also, for medications like antivirals and antibiotics, starting sooner rather than later can be very beneficial, especially in a medication like Tamiflu, which time matters. The sooner you take it, the better the outcome and the more beneficial that medication is. Same thing goes with antibiotics. You don't want to wait around for days and days and days to take an antibiotic because the longer you wait, the more opportunity the infection has to spread. Some other odd things that I found in there was like potassium chloride 20 milligram packet. The price was for 1 packet and it said that the cash price was going to be $975 for potassium. No. And getting nitpicky as a pharmacist, they also had oral vancomycin, which is typically used for an infection known as C. diff, which is infectious diarrhea. Very unpleasant. Number 1, you wouldn't wait around for that to get shipped to you. And number 2, the quantities that they had available didn't match any dosing regimen that I've ever seen for that before. It just didn't make any sense. So what does all of this mean? Well, in some ways, Mark Cuban was absolutely right. The pricing in pharmacy is just a hot mess. And a lot of this has to do with those pharmacy middlemen that he talks about in his marketing all the time. And it's not the insurance companies. It's the pharmacy benefit managers, also known as PBMs. Now, if you're not in pharmacy, you may have never heard of a PBM before. A PBM is a company that manages the prescription benefits for insurers, large companies that offer drug benefits, even people who have Medicare Part D. When these organizations were originally formed, the idea was they could represent a large number of insurers, giving more buying power to hopefully reduce drug costs from the manufacturers and being able to pass that on to patients. In theory, it was a great deal. The manufacturers were guaranteed that their drugs were going to multiple different insurance companies. The insurance companies were getting a little bit of a discount, and then patients were paying less. But over time, that's not what happened. See, the problem is PBMs are not insurance, they're not a pharmacy, so overall they are largely unregulated. So over time, these PBMs morphed into an entity that wasn't really looking out for the insurance or the patients, but themselves. These PBMs started adding additional charges and fees, inflating prices, and this caused several other chain events to happen, but I'm going to focus on a couple here. First off, that the PBMs started charging pharmacies additional fees sometimes months after the prescription was already filled, that then later caused them to lose hundreds of dollars on prescriptions. The confusing thing about these fees is there was no transparency on what these fees were for, where they were coming from, or why this prescription suddenly had a fee 6 months after it was filled. Second thing that happened was that drug prices went up for patients. Pharmacies started seeing that the copays were actually higher than the cash price was for this drug if you filled through insurance that was regulated by a PBM, which nearly all of them are. And the crazier thing was that until 2018, it was actually illegal for your pharmacy to tell you that your copay was more expensive than the cash price. Thankfully, in October 2018, the Patient Right to Know Drug Prices Act went through, so pharmacists can now tell you that information. If you think all of that sounds sketchy, that's because it is. And unfortunately, it's probably not going to get better anytime soon. Just a few days before I'm recording this, on February 17th of 2022, the Federal Trade Commission, or the FTC, actually turned down a request to do a further probe into the practices of pharmacy benefit managers, which isn't surprising based on the amount of power that PBMs hold. The top 3 pharmacy benefit managers in the United States hold almost 80% of the US prescription drug market. Less than 4% was held by the cash price market. Now, I could spend a ton more time talking about PBMs and all of the crazy practices that go on there, but for the sake of time of this video, I won't. However, if you're interested in a more in-depth look into that in a separate video, let me know down in the comments below. But here's what I want you to get out of this. Mark Cuban Cost Plus Drug Company is probably not going to be enough to disrupt the pharmacy market, especially when you have 3 large companies holding that large of a percentage of the market. Add in the fact that many of the prescription medications that he has available have prices that are similar to cash prices at some pharmacies, or similar to what is offered at GoodRx.com. Add on the fact that he has a very limited list of medications that are currently available. As it stands today, I just don't see this online pharmacy changing the market in any significant sort of way. And honestly, the cash-only private sector is just not going to be enough to overthrow these giant PBMs. Ultimately, I believe it's going to take government regulation of pharmacy benefit managers, a true look at their practices, and legislation that allows them to be governed appropriately before we see any sort of change whatsoever. I do think one thing will be interesting though. Mark Cuban is actually building his own manufacturing facility in Dallas, Texas. So he's going to be able to completely circumvent the system once he has his own manufacturer. We could potentially see even lower drug prices on his website at that time, but we won't know for sure until that actually is built. So now to answer the question, does Mark Cuban's online pharmacy actually save you money? Maybe. For certain medications, it could actually save you hundreds, if not thousands of dollars on your prescriptions. This is especially true if you have a limited number of pharmacies available to you and their cash price is really high. Maybe you don't have access to a place that takes GoodRx coupons and the cash price at your local pharmacy is very expensive. However, I would not rely on Mark Cuban's pharmacy to always give you the best price. And I also wouldn't rely on the number that they give you saying that the price at other pharmacies is X number of dollars, because as you saw here, that price can fluctuate significantly and it may actually be cheaper at your local pharmacy for cash price. Another thing that I've seen recently is there are more and more cash-only pharmacies popping up. There are a couple cash-only pharmacies in the town that I am currently in. So if you live in a bigger city, you may look to those options because it could end up being cheaper and you wouldn't have to pay that shipping fee. So if you have a very expensive prescription, whether or not you have insurance or you're planning to pay the cash price, look into multiple locations in order to find the best price. Ask your local pharmacy what their cash price is. Ask multiple local pharmacies what the cash price is if the one that you're getting from one sounds way too high. Check for coupons on GoodRx.com, look at the $4 list at Walmart, and then go ahead and look for the price of the medication on Mark Cuban's online pharmacy to see which one is going to be the best for you. Just make sure you include that shipping fee in your considerations. And just another reminder, reminder for GoodRx.com and Mark Cuban's Pharmacy, make sure that you are getting the right dose, the right form, and the right quantity whenever you're looking up how much a prescription is going to cost to make sure that price is the most accurate price for you. As you've seen here, drug pricing in the United States is way more complicated than it needs to be, but hopefully the information that I've shared in this video can be beneficial to you in finding the best drug prices available for your medication. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye!